Now we're sharing, I'm sharing this screen with you. This is the Sicha of the Lubavitcher Rebbe that he said in Tavshin Nun Beit, 1992. I think it was 1992 by that time. Anyways, Tavshin Nun Beit of the last months of 1991. And here it's talking about we've been learning this, right? Today is the fourth installment. He's talking about the second Rebbe of Chabad. In Chabad, there were 7 Rebbes, right? So the second Rebbe of Chabad, whose name was Dov Ber, and he lived 54 years, and the date that he was born is the exact same date that he passed away. Right? Then that's today. Actually, it's today, the 9th day of Kislev. Today. And the day afterwards, right in the middle of this whole thing, he was put into prison and he was released on the 10th day of Kislev. So the Rebbe says, what is this importance that a person was born on the same date that he passed away on? What's the point? He said, we see the same thing by Moses. Moshe also was born on the 7th day of Adar, and he passed away on Zadar. And there's some opinions that say that the same thing with Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. They were all born in Nisan, the month of Nisan, and they all passed away in the month of Nisan. What's so important? So the Rebbe says, okay, first of all, in Judaism, the physical world is very important. And that's why we see in this week's Torah portion that Yaakov left Beersheba, which was a very spiritual and holy and a comfortable place, and there were no enemies, and there was no difficult Beersheba, and he went to a place called Haran. And Haran was the worst place. It says that it aroused the flaming anger of God. Haran af shel Hashem. It aroused God's anger. There were people there were cheaters, and that's where he went, and that's where he, surprisingly, he got married, and that's where he raised all of the children. The 12 tribes were all born there. And then afterwards, he has to go to Esav. Okay, so the Rebbe asked a question. Just one second. The Rebbe asked a question. He said, listen, and this week, at the beginning of this week's Torah portion, before Yaakov gets married and he meets his wives and things like this, so before that, it says that Yaakov, he came to this place, he saw this ladder. He came to this place, and and this place was a holy place, and he went to sleep. He said this is the place where the holy temple was going to be. And he went to sleep. So the Rebbe says, how could he go to sleep in the holiest of holy places? Doesn't make any sense. This should have empowered him. It should have aroused him instead of making him go to sleep. Why did he go to sleep in this place? So the Rebbe said, okay, first of all, what happens when a person goes to sleep? When a person goes to sleep, or at least he lays down, so his head is on the same level as his feet. Usually, in the normal course of the day, a person is a person. His head rules over what goes on, and his body sort of follows. That's the way it's supposed to be. Your head rules, so you trust your head. Your thoughts are highest. Is there anything above your head? What could be above your head? That's the man. Man is logic, intellect, thought, right? So the Rebbe says, maybe the Greeks thought that way, and there's other people who thought that way, that the highest thing of man is his intellect. But the fact is, it's not so. The Creator is creating our head and our feet at the same time. By God, the head and feet doesn't make any difference. And Yaakov, because he wanted to connect to the Creator, so therefore he came to this place and he realized this is totally above understanding. Therefore he laid down. He made himself equal. His head and his feet are equal. By me, God, and compared to you, my head and my feet, same thing. Right? My thoughts are like nothing to you. You just tell me what to do, I'll do it. Now we can understand why Yaakov laid down in this place. Adarabah. Davka mitzadzeh, only because this was a place that was the holy temple. Asher there was going to be the ultimate revelation of God until the Giloy Atzmos, the revelation of the essence of God. And what is God? You have to remember, God, the lowest aspect of God is that He creates us. We can't create anything. We don't even know what that means to create. And God creates us. God creates me. This is incomprehensible. And this is the revelation of God's essence in the Holy Temple, and especially in the Holy of Holies. That's where the ark was. And the ark was, it says it couldn't be measured. It was there and it wasn't there at the same time. When they tried to measure it, they saw that it didn't have any measurements, but it had to be exactly measured. If the ark was not according to certain measurements, then it was disqualified. It had to be certain measurements, but nevertheless, they would lower somebody down once a year to clean the place when he would measure from one end of it to the wall, and the other end of the wall, they revealed it didn't take up any space. Dover Zevi, this fact that God, which is above time, above space, above intellect, above consciousness, He creates all these things, that caused Yaakov to lay down the Maliuta for a good thing, namely to unite what's below and what's above, the head and the feet, the highest levels of holiness to the lowest levels of holiness, to reveal everything by means of the Atzmos, essence of God, who He creates all these levels. That's what it says. Vayachalom, Yaakov went to sleep. Being a sulam mutzav arza, and there was a ladder standing on the ground, ground-wise, and its head, Migia Shemaima, the head this ladder went through the heavens. Hine Malachei Elokim, that there were angels going up and coming down. Hine Hashem Nitzav Alav. That's what we say in this week's part. And God is standing above all this. Hachibur, the joining and uniting between Arza, Shemaima, between the lowest levels of the earth and the highest levels of heaven, by means of Atzmus Mahuso, or by God standing over the whole entire thing. So automatically, there are also all the angels, right? All the angels that's what's in between. When a person joins between the heavens and the earth, then all these angels are there to help. Yeshlomar, we can say, this is Gama Biur Penimus Inyani. That explains the inside of all this. Al Vayikatz Yaakov, that until Yaakov woke up from his sleep, then he said, Vayomer Achen Yeshavaya b'makom hazeh. God is in this place, and I didn't know. What does it mean? I didn't know that the revelation of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei of God, the essence name of God, this is above any knowledge. Ani lo yadati, I cannot possibly understand and know. Cave and sins, shayadia, then the knowledge, who gather shall mila, because knowledge means that there's up, there's down, there's definitions. There's right, there's left, there's boundaries. Yadia, this is knowledge, this is connected to your brain and your head. The head. Then in the head, shenikar, that then there's a difference between your head and your feet when you're standing up and when you're laying down. Masha Enkin, which is not the essence of God, and by God, Maila Umata are equal. This is something which is totally above understanding. Continuing this, Vayira Vayomar, Manora Makomazeh, how awesome is this place? This is only the house of God. Yaakov said, this is the house of God. This is a house and a dwelling for God. How could there be such a thing? Hadar Badira, the one who dwells in this, one who dwells in a house reveals himself, all of his essence. Right? A person's house, home. I came home. This is where my essence is revealed. Calls all this was brought afterwards, after Yaakov made this, what we call this pillar, this monument. Yaakov And he made all sorts of vows. He said, God, if you will be with me, then I'll do whatever you want. Kol asher titenli aser asranu lach. And everything that you give me, God, I will give 1/10 to you. This all came by means of the revelation of God's essence. Then was revealed, Kol asher titenli, everything that you give me. Namely what? Physical, spiritual, everything together. This is aser asrenu. That's what it means. I will give 1/10. What does it mean, 10th? The 10th level says is the level of Keter. There's 10 sfirot, and the highest of them is Keter, God's crown. That's what it means. I'll give the 10th. I'll give the essence to you. Even more, to your essence I will give. Esrenu lach. I'll take all of my powers, all of my abilities, I'll devote it only to you, above understanding. So that's what the essence of Judaism is, to use your understanding, not to negate your understanding, to use your understanding if you want to devote your understanding to what's above understanding. If you want to call that negating, it means negating. It doesn't mean turning off your understanding. It means that you open up your understanding to the creator of understanding, to the creator. On that level, understanding, you're the highest level of genius you could possibly have, and your toes are exactly the same. Kevan shekol hametziut shekol lecha asher titen li is only lach. Gilui atzmut is only God, the revelation of God's essence. That's why it says, very interesting, who is wise? Someone who learns from everybody. So you could say, who is wise? Anybody who learns from every teacher. I mean, there's some people that are just fools. They have like 0 IQ, they have no. It says, no, it's not so. It's not so. You can learn something from everybody. Even sometimes there's people who have no intellect, they were who knows what, and there's something you can learn from them. Something from everybody, a little look, a movement, a smile, something you can learn from everybody. Why can you learn something from everybody? A big genius, he knows everything, right? He knows all the books. He says, no. God sometimes can be revealed in the lowest of lowest of lowest in the same way as the highest. The wisest man in the world has something to learn from a more simple person. You can see a lot of times the Lubavitcher Rebbe, who, I mean, in my estimation, there's no doubt that he was the wisest person in the world. I mean, like King Solomon. Everybody can think what they want to, but in my estimation, nevertheless, you see when people would go by the Rebbe, right, how interested he was in everybody, how tremendous, and there was conversation that he would have with people, and how he would be very interested in everything everybody said. The person would make sort of, a joke. Sometimes the Rebbe would laugh, and with it, every second was like brand new, and every person was like a gem, something to learn from. Why is this so? Because by God, the essence of Hashem, who he's creating the whole business, right? Highest and lowest is the same. We can't understand that, but sometimes it reveals itself. Not only that, even more, a person can learn. It says that Rabbi Akiva, for instance, that he was arguably the greatest genius of everybody in the whole Talmud. It says the whole Talmud came from him. Rabbi Akiva. It says that how did he become so wise? That until he was 40 years old, he didn't know how to learn, and he tried to learn, and he couldn't, and nothing went into his head, and he was so dejected, he didn't know what to do. He went out and he sat under a tree contemplating maybe just give the whole thing up. I don't know what negative thoughts were running through his mind, and he saw a water dripping on a stone, and it made a hole in the stone. And he thought, if something so soft as water can make a hole in something so hard as a stone, just by perseverance, as for sure something as powerful as the Torah can make an impression on something so soft and weak like my brain. And he eventually became, so in other words, what did he learn? He learned from a rock. He learned a rock doesn't have anything to say. He learned from a rock, he learned from water. Right? So we can see that the essence of God, the wisest of the wise, can be revealed in a stone, just like it can be revealed in the biggest genius. Why? That's why Yaakov laid down. Shekol metziut shel kol asher titen li is only lach. You realize that everything he has only comes from the essence of God. Al Pianal, according to what we said, we still haven't gotten around to the second Rebbe why his being born and passing away on the same date is important. We'll see. Meanwhile, we're learning a lot of interesting things. And we have to learn these things in order to understand fully the importance of the date of birth and the date of passing away. According to what we said, Yuvan can be understood also the inyan of Vayikach me'avnei makom, that he took from the stones of the place and he put them under his head and he laid down in this place. Al, what it says, Vayasim Rosh Hasov, that what it says that he took these 12 stones and he put it under his head. Rashi said, Asam kamin marzev, that he did not put them under his head, that he put them around his head. They made it like sort of a little wall around his head. Sheyira, because he was afraid, mipnei chayot rot, because of the dangerous animals. Yaakov was laying in the middle of the nowhere. There were no people around, only him and God. And it was a wild place. This is a desert. There's all sorts of, who knows what type of wild animals there are there. So Yaakov was no fool. So he took these 12 stones and he put them around his head to protect him from wild animals. And then it says, Hitchilu Meriva Zu, all of a sudden the stones started to argue. Zot Omer, one of them says, Alai, on me, with this tzaddik, Yaakov put his head. Zot Omer, another one said, no, I want him to put his head on me. What did God do? He made them into one stone. That according to, first of all, let's ask the first question. The stones arguing and God made them one. Okay, that's a question, but let's go first. What could it possibly help? A marzev putting this like trough or wall around his head. Halo yochlo chayos ros lishlot b'shar gufo. Wild animals can come and bite him in the rest of his body. Even if you want to say that these rocks somehow or other would discourage animals from biting his head, his eyes, who knows what. What about the rest of his body? He's got a whole, right, most of the meat from a person that animals want to eat are like, other places. Why didn't Yaakov surround his body? Masbirim, the people say, Sha'omnam kavanas Rashi, that Rashi said, that he surrounded his head, that Rashi didn't really mean that. That's what some commentators say. He really surrounded his whole body with stones. Lochen, who is this? Meforshim? Let's see, 88. Who is this? Who says this? Oh, it's way down there. Number 88 is, This is the Divrei David, and another one, Maskila David, and also the Maria on the Torah. On the Torah. Anyways, these very capable and wise commentators say that really Rashi intended the whole body. Some people say that he surrounded his whole entire body. Therefore, Rashi wasn't really careful, and what he just said, he just had head. Why did he say head? He really meant his head. That's what he meant the most important part, but really he meant his whole body. Therefore, he said a marzev. It says, what is it, marzev? Marzev means like some sort of like a pipe, a small pipe that it comes out from a trough. So therefore, it's a marzev only when there is something pouring out of it. So he made some sort of, okay, anyway, it protected his whole body. Nevertheless, we have to understand, why does it say that he put it around his head? Good, let's say it means his whole body, but why does the Torah say that he put it around his head? And also, how can we see that this wall or trough or pipe or whatever it is, how do we see that a thing like this could protect him from wild animals? I mean, wild animals, they could just jump over it. They could just jump over it. Like we can see, simply, animals know how to jump. We can say the explanation is like this according to Chassidus. The purpose of Yaakov taking these stones and putting them under his head was really a very spiritual thing. Like we said before, he drew down and revealed the light of the soul in a very powerful way. So this is the idea of the stones. Stones means power, unmovable. Kasher mitgalid v'metziut gashmiut metziut emitit neshama. When the true essence of the soul is revealed, then the physical world can't affect you. Therefore, the animals, the wild animals, we're not talking about physical wild animals. We're talking about spiritual wild animals, the negative feelings of this world. And if a person is okay spiritually, then physically also. We see by Daniel in the lion's den. It explains in the Tanya, the 24th chapter, that Daniel being thrown in the lion's den was a real human being among animals. And animals naturally fear a real human being. And what is a real human being? Someone who's connected to God all the time in his thoughts and his feelings. So because Daniel was a true tzaddik and he was attached to God in all of his heart and all of his soul, so the animals, the wild lions, they left him alone. So it's because he was okay spiritually, so physically he was also okay. Yaakov knew that the first main thing he had to control was his mind. And that's, he had to, his soul had to be ruling totally over his mind. So he protected his head. And that's where the soul is mostly, is in the brains and the head. From there, it gets spreading out to all the other limbs. Therefore, the main revelation, that's in the 9th chapter of the Tanya, right? Therefore, the main revelation of this power of the stones was in his head. And that's the whole, what Rashi says. The stones started arguing with one another. Each stone of the 12 stones said, I want Yaakov to put his head on me. What does it mean? This argument between the stones. What is the stone? Stones are like a firm, soul-driven decision. I'm going to serve God. All these stones, this was the argument of these stones arguing, the stones that were around his head, that they were around his head with the stones. It says the argument was, according to some people, between the stones of the marzev, of this trough that were around his head, with the stones that were in this pipe that was around his body. Right? What does it say? Some people say that when Rashi says there were stones around his head, it really means around his body. So they explained there were really two types of stones. There were stones around his head and stones around his body. He says that was the argument. What was the argument? The argument was, where will the tzaddik put his head? In other words, this idea of the powerful revelation of the soul to be like a stone, an immovable connection to Hashem, the revelation of holiness in the part of the body of Yaakov, this was, where does the power come from? And the head of Yaakov, the place of, where would Yaakov put his main emphasis? Where would this put his main emphasis? Would it be in the part of his body, or would it be in his head? Place where his main place where the godly soul is. Immediately, God said, I'm going to make them all into one big stone. Namely, what? The head of Yaakov will be equal to the body of Yaakov. What's this mean? The ultimate completion and wholesomeness of high and low in one stone. In other words, don't think that Judaism is a spiritual thing and that it's good, like when you're in the synagogue, you're Jewish, when you're out, be like everybody else. Or that it's a spiritual thing. You don't have to do the commandments. You don't have to expect it. Just be a Jew, a good Jew, in your heart, in your head. How can you unite these both together? By means of a revelation of the essence of God. Then it will lay down in this place. Equal. That's why he laid down. This means that this is given natinas makom klal lehizuk, and that there ain't makom, so that there's no place in any way that a Jew can be damaged by the world. If he surrounds his mind and his body with a firm decision that he's going to serve God, so God puts them together that everything becomes equal. So therefore, what does it mean? Two ways. Doing the commandments is no more is no less important than sitting and learning Torah. But on the other hand, learning Torah is no more difficult than doing the commandments. The same way you put on tefillin, right? So also you sit and you learn the Gemara. You don't understand. Same thing like if your strap turns over, you turn it over. So you turn it over again in the Talmud. Both of them, you're doing the will of God. Sometimes you do the will of God with your body. Sometimes you do the will of God with your mind. For some people, one is easier. Some people, the other is easier. Doesn't make any difference what you think. All of them are equal. And since that the revelation of the essence of God is specifically by means of it being revealed below, that's something like we learned in the mimer, right? We just finished learning that Rachel was the main thing. Kivan Shekila, the revelation of godliness from above. This was because of revelation. This is just the revelations of God. But in the physical world, where God is completely hidden, then here we can see even more sometimes the revelation of God's essence. And it's not limited by revealing and hiddenness. Specifically in this world can be revealed the essence of God. I'll just give you a small example because we're almost finished. Maybe we'll finish this first. And therefore, nifal tokaf kedusha miti, by means of stones. Therefore, this whole idea of holy power, a immovable connection to God, the essence of God is represented by stones, domim. That's what he made, took these stones and he made a pillar. And this stone, that's what became the house of God, the house of God's essence. And I just want to say, sometimes you see like a religious person, right? He puts on tefillin, he prays. Very nice, it's a good thing. Sometimes you can say, listen, the guy is religious. Everybody around him is putting on tefillin. His father put on tefillin. Everybody in the synagogue is putting on tefillin. He does it. He puts on tefillin. He's not going to put on tefillin. He's not going to, he's a religious person. But every Friday I go out and I ask people to put on tefillin. I have a table I put in the near a marketplace. Anyway, so I ask people. Sometimes you get people that are just like totally not religious. And then sometimes they'll even say, listen, I'm not religious. You know what I just finished doing? You know what I'm going to do? I can't do it. You say, what do you care? Put on tefillin. And the guy says, why? Why should I put on tefillin? You say, listen, God does everything for you. And even if you don't put on tefillin, you can do all the sins in the world and God still loves you. So he's doing it for free. So you do something for free. I said, oh, okay. Puts on tefillin. Right? Suddenly I think to myself, listen, if I was in this person's place, would I put on tefillin? I don't know. I'm a religious Jew already. I've been doing Torah mitzvahs 50 years. I'm not in the level of this person. He's putting on tefillin only because he feels Hashem. There's no logical reason. He's not doing it to go to heaven. He's not doing it to make friends with me. He's not doing it to impress somebody. He's not part of a group. His whole group doesn't put on tefillin. Could be if one of his group sees him, they'll say, hey, they'll laugh at him. Why is he doing it? Only because that's where the essence of Hashem is revealed in the stones, in the lowest levels. Now we can understand the special thing about Yaakov coming to Haran, but we'll have to do with this tomorrow. And now we'll just say the Yom Yom of today. Today's Yom Yom. I don't remember if we did yesterday's. We didn't do yesterday's. I'm going to do yesterday's too also. A person has to think, contemplate, how great is the kindness of God and how incredibly small of the smalls are we. But nevertheless, we, as small and insignificant as we are, we can actually give God tremendous pleasure. Like it says, "Ugedlaso ein cheker," and God, He's the greatest of the great. When a person thinks about this, a person should always be, inspired and serving God with a tremendous desire and joy. That was yesterday. On the 9th day of Kislev, Tov Kuf Nun Dalid, the Alter Rebbe said the Mimer, which would become the 53rd chapter of the Tanya. That talks about, right in the end, it talks about the first temple and the second temple. The next day he said another time, and he completed this to the end, to the end of the Tanya, 53 chapters. And there is, and also because all of the Maimorim that he said from the Rosh Chodesh Tov Kuf Nun, which means 1790, until for the next 4 years to Yud Kislev, this was eventually became the 53 chapters of the Tanya. The Alter Rebbe said. So the Alter Rebbe said these Maimorim in the course of 4 years, and eventually he arranged them to be the Tanya that we have in front of us today. Have a good day. 3 o'clock, God willing, we're learning Chumash. And after that, a Shulchan Aruch of the Alter Rebbe, Chelik Aleph, we're learning the laws of waking up in the morning from the beginning. And then we learn a Mishnah and Makot. See you at 3 o'clock, God willing. Have a good day, everyone. And Mashiach now.